Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff podcast. This is our Andor pre-show extravaganza. My name is David.
I'm Colin.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Kevin.
And I am Ted.
And we are so happy for you to join us and for our special guest to join us. He is none other than Chris Bartlett, veteran of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and so many other things under the sun for Star Wars. This is his first time on the podcast. So happy and thankful for him to be on. Chris, how are you doing?
Great. It's great to be with you guys. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I see you have a little friend behind you there.
Oh, yes.
Or multiple friends.
Yes, yeah. This guy who appeared in Kenobi. This is the screen use costume I wore in Kenobi.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Amazing.
So Colin and I had a little bit of discussion before the podcast.
Mhm.
Was that actually, I guess we all know the answer now, was it actually C-3PO in Kenobi serving?
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
He's in the credits, and he was doing what he's long been programmed to do, which was to as an interpreter and also specializing in etiquette and protocol.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was it was the real deal. And then also R2 was in the scene. So the idea is that now we know that the droids were in possession of the Organas on Alderaan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then something as well that that we were talking about before is like you got your start through the 501st. Myself, David, and Kevin are members of the 501st as well.
Oh,
Yeah. And you started off as a TK, right?
Yeah, that's true. My first in 2001, I built my first stormtrooper, kit, and I was my number is TK409, and
That's an early one.
that's right. Yeah, like I said, 2001, cleansing the galaxy of rebel scum. So anyway, I did that one, and then I built Boba Fett and Tusken Raider and Jawas for my kids, and then eventually moved on to other costumes like this guy, but that's where I started, and I'm grateful to the 501st for providing, such a creative opportunity to be able to play characters and also get hands-on with building, my own, and so yes, I after a while they after I built 3PO, then they often requested me to wear 3PO, which is not a bad guy, and so I kind of fell out of my requirement of wearing an Imperial costume to events. So hopefully my number is still honorarily active.
I think your number's okay.
Okay,
I'm feeling it's pretty safe.
okay, good.
So yeah, me being a huge Star Wars fan, I kind of know your backstory, but I know a lot of our audience that's going to listen to this and watch this don't know exactly what your origins are for Star Wars. It's very interesting. I was wondering if you could take a little bit of time and talk about that a little bit.
Sure, a little bit. I mean, I was 7 years old in 1977 when I saw New Hope in the theaters, and totally ignited my my imagination as a kid. And back then there was just one movie, so there was no promise of future films. And but we had the action figures, so we could make our own stories in the backyard or whatever with R5D4 and Luke and Snaggletooth. And so I just always I loved Star Wars, and I continue to. And then as a once Return of the Jedi came out, and they did on television, they did a behind the scenes or the making of Star Wars. And I was 13 years old when I saw that, and I was like, I want to work for George Lucas one day. I mean, I also want to make video games, but I want to work for George Lucas someday. And And so again, what working on Star Wars, I don't know, working on there was no promise for other films, so that was it. And then along came the 501st, like I mentioned, and then I just kept building and playing characters at conventions and stuff, just like a lot of fans do. And but I really wanted to create the illusion that these characters were maybe on loan from Lucasfilm, or and only doing that in my performance, not misleading anybody, but just in the performance. So walking around at the conventions or whatever and talking to people in character, as if I was really a stormtrooper or sand trooper or Boba Fett. And then through that, I lived up in Northern California, and then through that, I was invited along with the 501st to Lucasfilm for an event. I think we were directing traffic in a parking lot for Revenge of the Sith, media event, and then you meet friends at Lucasfilm, and they're very warm and inviting, and so after that, whenever I'd build a costume, they would find out about it and be like, "Wow, great job," and that was enough. I just was so happy to have a connection with friends at Lucasfilm. But then they found out about my project building a lifelike C-3PO costume. And before I was quite finished, they invited me to come to Lucasfilm for an audition. And that was in 2006. And, they put it on and lock the head together and turn on the lights, and I said, "My goodness, why hello, I am C-3PO, human cyborg relations, and this is my counterpart, R2D2, where did you go?" Anyway, like this. And so then the next day we flew to Australia for my first audition, which was an event where they had a soundtrack pre-recorded, and I just needed to animate in the costume. And then now it's been this is my 17th year performing as C-3PO, which sort of culminated in Obi-Wan Kenobi. I've worked together with Anthony Daniels on a lot of projects, and so I'm grateful to be playing someone else's character, but that has led to playing some of my own characters since then.
Fantastic.
That's incredible. Yeah,
Thanks.
That's an amazing story. And I know you just listed off the fact that you worked on some video games or was really into video games, and you really have an impressive video game resume. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. Well, all actors need a day job, and so my day job is working in video games, and I'm a what's called a UX director or principal. Different studios call different things. UX is user experience, and I'm basically someone said the other day, you're Captain Fun. You make sure that the game is fun. But I started out as a graphic artist and designing user interfaces and heads-up displays for games and weapons and targeting reticles, and for ships and vehicles and things like that. And so I got my start on Gears of War. That was I worked on the first four Gears of War games, and also worked on Fortnite and the Tomb Raider reboots, and now Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Warzone. I was the UX director on that project. So and then now I'm working on the next Star Wars game, which is there are no coincidences, but somehow things come together, and I just couldn't be happier. So yeah, day job and other day job.
So when you say new Star Wars game, are you talking about Jedi Survivor, or are you talking about the new open world? I know you probably can't talk that much about it, but I'm just curious.
Yeah. At this point, I can just say it's the new Star Wars game. And
okay.
So there's more than one.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Coming. But I think there's 2. But I am working with everybody who's working on the new Star Wars games. So
That's very,
wow.
very exciting stuff.
Very, very carefully said. Well done, Chris.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I'm grateful for the work, and I'm grateful to be working in and to have multiple jobs in this universe. So,
Absolutely.
The way that you keep those jobs is you know how to keep your mouth shut.
Yep.
This is a man who's winning at life right now. That's what.
Yeah.
I've had experience working with a little bit of Star Wars and signing an NDA, so I know.
Okay, good, right? Yeah.
Chris, you've had such a great career playing C-3PO. What are some of the elements or components to playing him well? How did you study the character yourself in order to put yourself in that space?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I used to listen to his voice on my commute to and from work, and at the time I had about an 80-minute round trip commute. So I would just have the DVDs playing, or DVDs at the time, playing, and I was just listening for his lines, and I would just play them over and over and try and mimic them, and then to match his voice. And then the other parts were, just studying his movements. There's lots of footage on YouTube that is not just the films. Like he made appearances on British television and on Sesame Street and lots
Star
of
Wars radio drama.
Yeah, the Star Wars radio drama. Anthony Daniels did the voice there too. So I was just really studying it and really trying to get it down. And then there was a couple of times where, as a fan, I got to meet Anthony Daniels two times as a fan, and then and he and I just talked about the animation. He's like every part is separate from the other parts. The head and the neck are separate from the torso, and the arms are separate from the chest. And so all of them have individual movements. And then, anyway, I just picked up certain things in the animation that I tried to match, and in the voice. And the other things are, 3PO is very appropriate, and he would never do anything that was inappropriate. And so I would, I always tried to, I always portray him in a way that's appropriate and respectful of Anthony Daniels' performance and really his creation of that character, and trying to make it so that it feels as seamless as possible, so you don't know which one it is in the suit, because it's 3PO. That's all that matters, right? So that's it. That's my approach so far.
Walk us through when you show up on set, maybe even before you show up on set. Walk us through what you do to get ready for that shoot that you're doing, because being part of the 501st, I've handled as well. I know you got to be careful with what the costumes are and how you put stuff on, and I got to help your friends out and all that kind of stuff. But kind of walk us through your prep work and what you do. And I got to assume you probably have a set day diet as well you got to worry about. These little things that maybe not a lot of fans think about as you're doing this.
Well, while I do play 3PO, I also play all the protocol droids in all the new shows, and in addition to a couple of aliens. But the droids are really my particular set of skills. And so about a week, I always I do a lot of running, and by running I mean running away from milkshakes and donuts and ice cream. And then I try and keep a kind of a lean diet. I do that all the time anyway, but sometimes you gotta have a hamburger and a milkshake once in a while. But anyway, so I just keep a pretty lean diet: fish and chicken, and drinking a lot of water, and then I do a light workout. I'm not a big cardio guy, so I'm just And I'm not a huge gym guy either. I just try to watch what I eat and work out, where I can. So that's my preparation.
I had a question. What's it like for you to get mentally prepared though for being into this role, whether it's 3PO or one of these other droids? Because I figured there's a lot of mental prep that you have to get and a particular mindset you might have to get yourself into to portray a droid.
Yeah, well, every droid's different, right? And so while they all have similar construction, fictionally as a droid, they all have different programming, and so they all have different, they might all move a little bit different. I try to get as much information as I can from the director beforehand. One example is Q90. He's very different from 3PO, right? He's a mercenary droid, a bounty hunter. He doesn't move like 3PO. There you go. And so for that one, I look at his face. He kind of resembles a praying mantis. So like I've said in interviews, I went and watched a bunch of praying mantis videos just to see if there's any inspiration there. And sure enough, there was. They're very robotic, like moving. And so I watched a lot of that, and then I tried to translate that to his movement, and as kind of a bug robot. Another character would be like the traffic droid in the Book of Boba Fett. This is a droid that got caught up in that speeder chase with the scooters and the speeder, and we wanted him to feel like, first of all, he's super, super grimy, really, really worn out and dirty. And so I gave him like this kind of loose animation that, like, as if his joints were a little bit loose, and he was really worn out and old. And he had to, there's this part of the direction was we needed to like spin around, like the scooters were going by so fast. He's getting all caught up, and maybe he's going to get run over. And he's all worried, Another one is like One Jack. One Jack, it was in Kenobi. Here's my bootleg One Jack. This is 4-LOM with pistols. I just made this one. But, I don't have one yet, so
You could have just told us it was a special one that was made for you. We could have believed it.
Anyway, but One Jack had to be 100. Deborah Chow said 100%. Not C-3PO, and there he is. And so I wanted to make him like a gunslinger. They said he needed to be able to jump and run and move really fast. And while you don't get to see a ton of that in the show, I tailored the suit so that I could have a gunslinger stance, like a wider stance, and also guns, so that I could hold guns, because 3PO is not great at holding pistols. So anyway, and then another thing you get ready for is inside the helmet. All you can see is let me show. This is a little sneak peek. Okay, so inside the little eyes there, you can just see there's only like the little black dots in the center, the pupils. That's all you can see out of. Okay, so in order to kind of get in the mindset is, you could get a little claustrophobic in there if you weren't used to it, right?
Right.
And so what I do is I don't focus on what's inside here. I focus on what I can see out there. I can see people, I can see smiles, I can see cool sets, and I can see, other characters. And so that's what I focus on. And that way, I'm out there. I'm not stuck in here, imprisoned inside this, inside this head, right? So this is a little preview for what you're gonna see in Mando season 3.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
I was actually going to ask you if you ever had any claustrophobic moments, because I know that there was one moment that Anthony Daniels has talked about a lot in the past, where one day on set where he was walking, and then one day like he was down for a second and he was like freaking out and they had to unbowl him and everything. Have you had something very similar?
Yeah, he pointed to that scene where in Return of the Jedi where Salacious Crumb was on his face and he had one eye that was out, but it was covered. You know, he couldn't see out of it, and then this puppet is right in this other one. And when that's happening, the only access you have to the outside world is through that one tiny little hole, right? When that's covered, if you're not ready for it, it can give you like some anxiety. But I have a thing I do now after doing it for so many years that I just kind of go into like a Zen rest kind of, you know, thing. It's a real thing where I just calm all my, you know, any anxiety. I don't have a lot anyway, but calm everything down. I'm surrounded by people that I trust. No one's gonna push me over or anything like that. Except for the stunt coordinator, but I do all my own stunts, so that's you know, something else I do. But anyway, no, I just kind of like I have a ability to control the anxiety, and so that's and now I'm just like I've done this a lot, so I feel really comfortable that I'll be able to do a good job, and also it really helps to have a great dresser. So my dresser, I've had two great dressers over the years, Chris Sanders and Dana Gasser. Dana Gasser is the one who's been dressing me on the new shows, and he can pop the head. We've built the head so we can pop it off after every take now. So that gives me a lot of break to breathe and not get fatigued in the head, you know.
And the other question I want to ask is that I saw that you had a role on the Orville as a Kalon.
Yeah.
And I just got done watching the Orville for the first time, and I love that show so much. And great. I noticed that the Kalon are very similar to protocol droids. Did you have the same mindset as you do playing protocol droids in Star Wars as going into the Orville?
Well, Mark Jackson, who plays Isaac on the Orville, first of all, I love that you watched it recently. That's great.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's a fun show. And I play, surprise, a robot. That was that just came because people knew my work, and so they were like, please come to the show and play a robot for us. And Mark Jackson, I talked to him directly about this, and he was like, look, this is not going to be like C-3PO. He's very, the Kalon's very more mimic human movement, a lot more closely, and there's not any hard parts of the suit really. And so one thing that he said was, you always keep your hands at the ready, as if they're going to be, working on a keyboard or opening a door or whatever. Their hands are always up and ready. But the movement is nothing like C-3PO. But being in a head with limited vision, it was basically just kind of misted with spray paint. So you see like some light spots, dark spots. But so that part was similar. But anyway, it was my role was to get all the background Kalons to march in step and also to move like robots. That was what I was asked to do. And
that's so cool.
And it worked out great. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that episode. There's all the Kalons are in the.
That's my favorite new show is the Orville.
Yeah.
Kyle and I have been covering it on our Fandom Podcast Network.
Oh, great.
We talked about all season 3, and I had a chance to meet Mark once at Dragon Con. Very nice guy.
Yes.
Albeit briefly, but I remember they were talking about in season 2 how he had to kind of give Kalon classes to all of the extras that were playing the Kalon. Right. And so I can only assume, that you had to follow suit with him. And I hear he's a great guy.
He is very, very nice and very generous, and he was very happy that we were all there. What we did was training class, Kalon class, was on the bridge of the ship. So we all met in the control room.
Oh, that's so cool.
That was really cool. Yeah. And then he gave us some instruction, and he was just very generous. He's a very nice guy.
That's awesome.
Very talented actor too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a question from one of our viewers here. His name is Pizza Kid,
Okay.
and he's asking you what your favorite Star Wars movie is.
I have two. My favorite is A New Hope. That was the first one that made such an impression on me that it just there's the first time I got to see stormtroopers and droids and Jawas and Star Destroyers. I mean, it just blew my mind. So, but after that, Rogue One was my next favorite because it felt so close to the original, but also there was real stakes in this story. Like in Star Wars before, all the heroes, of course, they all survive. They're not going to die. And in Rogue One, you get this connection to these characters, and you Jyn Erso and Cassian Andor and K2SO, and then one by one we lose them, and they did such a great job of connecting us as audience members to these characters, both through the performance and also through the storytelling, that by the end I was so brokenhearted that we were losing each one of these characters. So anyway, I loved that. Plus I love the design of like Death Troopers and so I really loved that film.
If you don't mind, I had a follow-up question to that because a lot of us saw the IMAX re-release of Rogue One, and Kyle and I were discussing about how we kind of feel like this movie just keeps getting better and better with rewatches. And I always have this fun conversation with people because we lose the whole cast. They all die in it. But I was kind of curious though. Yep, spoiler alert. I always ask this question just in case because it makes for great conversation. So I want to know what your answer is. If you could have had one person of the Rogue One crew survive, who would it have been?
K2SO.
That's a popular one. Yeah.
Same.
I loved his attitude. It was so out of the ordinary for what we would think of as droids, and I loved Alan Tudyk's performance. But yeah, he was. I just really loved that character, and he was the first one. I think he was the first one to go. There in the whatever that is, the vault or whatever, with the stormtroopers, and that was so like when it happened, I was like, oh wait, no, aren't they gonna continue? Oh no, I'd like to see him because I want to see more of him. I love his character, and but now we get to see more Cassian Andor, starting tonight or tomorrow, depending on where you are.
A few hours away.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was just rewatching Rogue One, and watched all the special behind the scenes stuff that Disney Plus put on. I'm really excited to watch it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
We all are. Before we let you go, we know that you're very busy and you're Captain Cool, of course.
Thanks.
Did you work on Andor at all?
Ooh.
Andor was filmed at Pinewood, while all the other new Star Wars shows are filmed in Los Angeles, where I'm based. There was a contribution to Andor, but it's not. I didn't go over to Pinewood, but I did have a contribution, and I don't know which episode it is in. So maybe after all the episodes, then we'll be able to come back and talk about it.
Nice.
Very cool.
But
Absolutely.
You know that I have a particular set of skills.
Keep your streak alive. Keep your streak alive.
Yeah.
And I've got one question. I want to be in character if I didn't ask. On the set of Book of Boba Fett, did you get a chance to see my favorite character, Max Rebo? Because I know there was one on there. I'm obsessed with the guy.
Yes, I worked with Max.
My gosh.
He's a classic. I mean, he's an old timer, but I mean, he's very good at what he does. He's an amazing musician. It was sad that he had to be incinerated because of my mishap. But so in Book of Boba Fett, I played a couple of characters. One of them was the server droid in Madame Garza's cantina, and that's when I picked up the Camtono and accidentally blew up the place. Yeah. So, but Max, yeah, he was sculpted by a friend of mine, Tamara, who works at Legacy Effects, and also played by her. She also was in the suit, but it was so neat to be able to see, is that really Max Rebo? Oh yeah, it's Max Rebo. It's cool. Original trilogy character. But yeah, that was I did work with him, and
I'm so jealous.
Everything you can imagine how great it was. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I mean, so I'm not gonna lie. I don't think he died. Because I no, like
Right.
I
assuming,
scanned that
but
scene, man.
Yeah.
I think we all did. I don't think he was. I think he had the night off actually.
Maybe
that is what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I looked. I didn't see any blue. I didn't see any blue on screen.
Yeah,
like
I think
when
you're
it blew
right,
up.
Actually, I think that he his set was done and he was gone for the night. So yeah. He was out.
We can only hope.
He was out the back door signing autographs.
I may have watched that scene a few times to try and confirm that, and I cannot confirm if he died or not.
Yes, that was funny. Yeah, in that there was a really amazing day of filming where we were doing the band scene, and then at the end of the day, Robert Rodriguez, who plays guitar, and Tamura Morrison, who plays guitar, they got up on the stage with their guitars and just started jamming out, and they were playing songs like full on songs and singing and everything, and all of the crew, all of us, the actors and the crew, all were standing around like having this mini concert at like what you would imagine at like a small pub or something, when it's open mic night or something. But it was, and it was all, we were in a Star Wars environment. It just felt like,
wow, your own cantina.
Yes, right. It was really surreal, and
that's awesome.
I just feel so blessed to be able to work with these super talented people. Doing what I love to do, what we would all love to do, and I know that it's not trivial. It's something that's very, very special. But that's what we're trying to do with Star Wars. It's a big responsibility to tell new Star Wars stories, not only because we all love it, but because we all love Star Wars, and we all want to do a good job at continuing these really interesting stories and these interesting characters. So that's it's exactly how you imagine stepping onto the set in Star Wars, just how you would imagine what it's like. Your entire life of fandom flashes before your eyes, and everything slows down into slow-mo, and you step up on the set and you're like in Star Wars. And now,
so what is it like when a robot dances?
Right. Well, it's awkward for everyone else because the pointy elbows that will get you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
All right, Chris.
Shout out to Robert Rodriguez, who's hometown boy of ours. I'm in San Antonio, his hometown. Great. So he's made all of us proud, getting into the Star Wars universe. Yeah. Chris, just real quick, just want to ask you. So you've been a lifelong fan. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to you to not only be a part of the Star Wars universe, but you are literally extending the original trilogy with these stories?
I just got chills when you asked me that. It is something that I always dreamed about, but that I never imagined would actually happen. You know what I mean? Like, you think about it all the time. You wonder what it would be like. You do things that don't make sense to anybody else because, gosh, it would be so cool if, I don't know, you just fantasize about it. And then, but, in reality, I'm just the guy working in my garage at 2 a.m. building costumes. I'm not, and somehow, it happened. And I can only say what it's like is every fun childhood dream come true. And just I get kind of emotional thinking about it. It's just I'm just really grateful to be part of this because it meant so much to me as a kid that, you know, Star Wars is for, George Lucas has said, Star Wars is made for the rising generation. It's a morality tale for the rising generation. So, you know, it's really made for like 7 to 12-year-olds. You know, it's not made for 40-year-olds so much, but it is, you know, it is all, there's that part, and then there's the part that is that as Dave Filoni said, Star Wars should always leave you with a good feeling. And it should give you, you know, a peaceful or happy feeling, even though the middle acts are always kind of, you know, tumultuous, because that's how stories go. But it should always leave you with a good feeling, and that's how I feel when I'm on set. And so I hope that feeling that I have as a performer somehow can translate through, you know, from inside here out through the costume to the camera and to the audience and into living rooms. So it's that's what it means to me. It's just the most fun I have in my life.
Beautifully said.
Yeah. Well done.
Every day is a pinch me moment.
Yeah, every day. That's right. And I have to, you know, early on I had to like practice, you know, I talk about, you know, controlling any anxiety or whatever, was this kind of like Zen control. I also had to control my fandom, because just like any of you here, it's exactly how you would imagine. You get on set and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna explode, you know.
Yeah.
And I want to tell everybody and I want to talk to everybody, but like, we're professionals and we are telling stories. Like Werner Herzog said to me one time, this is serious work. We are breathing life into these characters which would not otherwise exist, you know. And like, yeah, that's true. You know, so calm down, Chris Bartlett.
That was spot on, by the way. Well done.
Did you like that? He was very close to me when we were talking, and so like, I don't want to upset him. But anyway, yeah, that's the deal. Yeah, so I hope that you guys. I can't wait to watch Andor. I hope that you guys will enjoy it too. And there's also a little something coming out in February next year, is Mandalorian season 3, and so I'll be looking forward to that one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So yeah, before the podcast, Colin and I were actually talking about a droid story. Did you have any influence on that project?
The droid story is an animated production, so it is Anthony Daniels worked on that one, and I don't know what all work that he did. Probably definitely voice and probably some motion capture he did for it, but it's a animated production done by ILM, and I'm super excited to see that one too.
Awesome.
But
awesome.
Yeah,
with that, Chris, I don't want to keep you any longer than you have to be here, so thank you so much for coming on the podcast and celebrating Andor Eve with us. And
you're welcome. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate you reaching out. Mm-hmm.
Good to have you.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate
you're welcome back anytime.
Oh, thanks so much. All right, guys. Well, have a great evening, and we will see you on the other side of Andor.
All right. Awesome.
Fantastic.
Thanks very much.
All right.
Take care.
Good night.
Well, that was awesome.
Wow. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, just the stories that he told about being on set and just having that emotion. Because I always thought back in 2015 that JJ was such a huge fan to direct The Force Awakens, to come back after that long hiatus after the prequels, to be that big a fan. It's like, how can someone contain themselves and control themselves if they're as big a fan as JJ said he was, to direct the next Star Wars film? I don't think I could do it. It would just be too overwhelming for me to do something of that nature. But it has been done, and then Rian Johnson did his thing, which kind of gave me more confidence if I were to work on something Star Wars.
Chris Farley did a very funny skit on SNL that would probably show us how, as fanboys, would happen if we had a celebrity next to us that we had to talk to or doing something kind of geeky. So I always kind of think about it like that a little bit.
Yeah, just it's incredible, man. And yeah, Chris didn't get to say it on the podcast, but he is on Instagram, and you can find him at Chris F. Bartlett. And he's got some pretty amazing pictures on Instagram that you can clearly see there, everyone that he's played in the Book of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian. There's that traffic droid he was talking about at the top right. So, and he played.
He just not. Yeah. He just doesn't have his stuff from Obi-Wan Kenobi on there, which we at first didn't think that he was on there because it wasn't like listed like really anywhere else. It's not even on IMDb. But then we like looked back, and then I was like, oh, okay, cool. So it was him. So I am glad he confirmed that because I don't think a lot of people knew that. But yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was rather excited hearing his Orville stories too because
yeah,
the Orville is just so amazing.
Yeah, Orville is a great show. Yeah, a lot of people aren't talking about it. It doesn't seem like it's in its proper place, I think, in the zeitgeist quite yet. But I think there's so many shows, so many streaming channels. It's now on Disney Plus. But I did watch the first season. And I thought, wow, this is actually pretty incredible.
Gets better and better. Keep watching.
On the surface, it seems like it's maybe like a Star Trek parody clone type thing, but it's not. Somehow Seth MacFarlane kind of pulls it off that it's something in and of itself, and it's a pretty remarkable achievement.
Yeah. Great interview. He is clearly a fan like all of us, and I just love hearing not just the perspective of working like on the show, but the responsibility of being a part of this universe. Might have froze there. The responsibility of being a part of this universe, and he just so eloquently, beautifully said, exactly what it means to him. So I actually just absolutely love that part.
I think especially too with the weight he has of carrying such a legacy character like 3PO.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Max Rebo is not dead.
Yes. It was
hashtag
Max Rebo lives. I've been doing that hashtag since I joined Instagram and we started.
He was not playing in that band when that place exploded. I'm just saying.
No, he wasn't.
Max is smart enough to know when it's time to get out of Dodge. He did it with
exactly.
Jabba. He knew it. He knew it here. So.
Yeah.
I was
every
kind of
single
shocked
time
when Chris said that he got incinerated. I was like, "Whoa, is that like a scoop?"
Yeah, yeah. I had to jump right in after he said that because I was like, it hasn't been confirmed. It like I just wanted to clarify. But every time that we have a guest on that I know that worked on the Book of Boba Fett, I always bring up Max Rebo because at Celebration they have something called the Mandalorian Experience, and when we walked in and I saw that Max Rebo was there, I lost it. Like I completely lost it. Like that was just truly phenomenal to see in person.
So yeah, Andor. I haven't got Kyle, Kevin's, and Ted's kind of anticipation and hype for the show. Let's start with Ted. I haven't really heard much about Andor from you. What are you expecting to see? Is this something that you wanted? Because I've heard from a whole lot of people that this isn't a show that wasn't really needed, but after all these reviews have hit the net from the embargo that was lifted for social media, it seems like it's universally loved. So
they said the same thing about Rogue One. There was people out there that said we don't need this. This isn't about Jedis. It's not really about Sith. We don't really need the story. We know how the story ends. They all mention that. And we clearly all appreciate the story, the characters. And Diego Luna is, I'm a huge fan of him. He's been fantastic on shows like Narcos. And so just to get more Diego Luna in Star Wars You don't have to say anymore. I'm already there. I'm a little biased. I'm admitting that, but 12 episodes or 24 episodes, if you're counting both seasons of this new series, just feels like they have something solid to tell me. It's not a limited series. It's not a 10 episode season or 8 episode season. They're telling us they have something solid to show us and tell us. And so I'm very eager to see what it is.
Yeah.
Kevin?
You know, I remember hearing that from day one when Andor was announced that this wasn't a show that fans really wanted at first. And I remember Kyle and I were talking about this early on. We were thinking like, you know, it's not something we ask for, but you know, Star Wars doesn't have to be Star Wars shows or movies doesn't have to be that, you know, because there's something for everyone. But when I started looking at Rogue One soon after that announcement was done, I wanted to know if what drives a guy to kill an informant to save the trail that he is hot on and to also take orders from a fellow rebel to basically kill someone's father that they're about to go on a mission. I want to know I want to know what a guy has to go through. And what's interesting too is that this gives us a very important look at a Star Wars timeline that has not been explored. You know, the closest that we get is Rogue One, but we need to find out where the rebellion is at this time. And as we've seen from the trailers, it wouldn't surprise us that, you know, the Empire is resting on their laurels and they feel comfortable, maybe too comfortable in their power, and they're finally getting challenged. And we need to see a darker side of the rebellion that we've seen before. And I think that's something that we're going to get in this show. And that's one of the things that I'm most excited about.
Kyle?
Yeah. For me, I've been excited about the show since they announced it. I've made no secret, and Kevin will attest to this. Rogue One is in my top 3 of all time Star Wars movies, and it started off when it first came out. I probably had it in my top 5, but after so many rewatches, it's in my top 3. I've loved this story. It's by far my favorite of the Disney era of Star Wars films. And when they announced this, I'm like, I was so excited about it because, like Kevin, I am excited to get into a part of the Star Wars universe that we really haven't seen on screen, and seeing that side of the rebellion that, you know, George really didn't portray, because George was, you know, these are the good guys. We don't necessarily see them doing the bad things, but this is a rebellion, and we are going to see the good guys sometimes have to make moral and questionable decisions for the good of the cause. And we're finally going to be able to get to see that. And one of the things that I'm so excited about with this show too is, and it's something that I feel really strongly about with Star Wars, is that I don't need a Jedi in every series. I don't need certain references. I just need a good, solid story, and give me a little war in my Star Wars. And I'm really looking forward to this with the war side, seeing the rebellion growing from basically the ashes of what was there, seeing how Andor evolves as a character, because we even start seeing that a little bit in the little bit of trailer that they gave us before the IMAX release. There, we're hearing about what the things he did and how he is like, I sneak into the Empire because they don't notice me. And like Kevin said too, we're seeing the Empire at probably the height of its power, but at that same height, it's blind to some of the things that are going on around it. And I think it's going to be such an interesting time frame to see in Star Wars, and just so interesting in the aspect of we know there's no hero to necessarily come bail these guys out. If they get in, they're on their own and they're doing their thing. There's no Jedi coming. There's no Force user coming. And just to see that and see how it starts coming together, I'm really, really excited for that, both on the action side and on the political intrigue side as well. And with Tony directing, you know, you're going to get a little bit of that spy thriller in there too. So I've been all in on this.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Kyle.
Yeah.
Colin, what was your anticipation?
So this is a dark time for the Empire and for the galaxy in general. And now that that we are diving into the early days of it, and we'll probably see the very early days of the Empire as well, because from the trailers we see clones and everything. So it's like, okay, I'm very excited to see where it will go. I'm excited to, as most of you said, to see a darker side of the rebellion, because for a while since the original trilogy, the Rebel Alliance was known as the good guys that really didn't do anything wrong, like on the way in. But from the first couple of minutes of Rogue One, you like see Cassian shoot someone just to cover himself and get out of a situation. So I'm curious if we'll see more things like that in the Andor series, which I think we will, because this is a different. It's the same character, but he's not acting the same as he did in Rogue One. Like this is the early stages of that character, and I love that we'll be exploring him and the darker timeline that this is taking place in.
Yeah, I have a question. I have a question for everybody here on the show. Is one of the things that I'm curious to see is going to be how the fans react to this, because we got a little taste of the different Star Wars in Rogue One, but this is going to be different than really, I think, any Star Wars we've experienced. And I think you've heard that from the cast, you've heard that from the director, that we're not going to have a ton of Easter eggs. We're not going to have these fan shout out moments. He's telling the story he wants to tell, and that's the way it's going to be. And I'm really curious to see how the fans are. I mean, obviously the early reviews have been really good. Are the fans, I think as a fandom as a whole, are we ready for something different in Star Wars, or are there going to still be people out there going, wait, where's my lightsabers? Where's my Jedi? Where's my Force? So I'm really curious to see how that reaction is going to be as well. I'm just curious to see where you guys weigh in on this.
Can I chime in on that? So we've heard this line from Tony Gilroy saying that there's not, this is not going to be any fan service, and this is coming from a guy who's not a fan of Star Wars, and in a way is a good thing, because he was able to write a very interesting and awesome story for Rogue One, and that's why he was brought into this. But I don't know how you can tell a Star Wars story without, the term fan service has a broad meaning. So I don't know if he's gonna. From someone who's not a Star Wars fan, he's probably gonna inadvertently show us some fan service, because if you're gonna bring in some of these characters that we know and love, and there's some rumors from people from Rogue One coming in, that's sort of fan service. So I'm kind of a little confused what he means by that. I mean, like maybe a walk-on role that kind of goes in the background, whether it's like we saw Chopper and Hera's ship, or the voice of Hera, stuff that maybe is what he's talking about. But and maybe that kind of plays into more of a a fun / yeah, we're looking at you, fans, we want to be here for you. I don't know if that means things are going to be darker and he's not relying on these little things. That's fine. But with what he has to cover in a story, I think fans shouldn't be worried about that. I think it's going to be fun. We're going to see stuff that we recognize, maybe take as fan service, but not directly like, some stuff just kind of thrown in your face.
Yeah, to me, the way I kind of interpreted the no fan service thing was the overt in your face, on the nose type stuff, like Dr. Evazan and Ponda Baba on Jeddah.
Oh yeah,
right before it just exploded, and somehow they got on the ship immediately after, before it got annihilated by the Death Star. I mean, that type of stuff was a little bit too much. There is a picture that I posted on our Facebook group that is very, very fan servicey. It's in regards to a specific prequel era character. I know some of you don't want to know too much, but it's I think there's going to be stuff sprinkled here and there. And I've seen a lot of non-spoiler reviews, and a lot of these people are saying that, there's some stuff in there that hardcore fans are really going to kind of flip over. So I think that's the way it is.
I think
Well-
he's setting expectations appropriately. He's
Right.
setting them low so that you can actually be surprised. You don't actually set your expectations high for
And
something,
then you'll never be
and then you get
disappointed.
disappointed. Exactly.
That's a life
Colin.
lesson right there. Yeah.
He's learned from the past. We know what
Yeah.
he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Because making Star Wars and not giving fan service is kind of impossible. Like there's Easter eggs from everywhere. The only show that I can see that would be very difficult to start to have Easter eggs and stuff like that is going to be the show Acolyte, because of that's taken like way long before like of the prequels and the original trilogy and the sequels. So that I could see it difficult, having like a bunch of kind of different shout outs and Easter eggs and cameos. And in this show during the timeline, this is happening around the events of Star Wars Rebels. So there's definitely a chance that we'll, probably see, different cameos and Easter eggs from that show and stuff from the prequels. So it's like I've kind of taken what he said with a grain of salt, because it's like you can't have Star Wars without Star Wars in it. And I think that's why fans were kind of confused by what he said.
I think part of it could be what he means is there's not, like you and you guys all allude to, is that there's not those forced Easter eggs. Like I'm just throwing something in to throw something in to appease fan service.
Yeah.
To make people go, oh, he put that in. I think whatever is going to be there is going to be things that will naturally fit in the story he's telling.
Yeah, and fan reaction is really going to be interesting on this one. Like you said, Kyle, you're really interested to see what is the general public's reaction going to be to this, because we all know this is going to be something that's totally different than what we've seen on Disney Plus. It's going to be darker. There's not going to be the lightsaber play, the Jedi, the Sith, most likely in action. If we get anything, maybe we'll get Ian McDermott as Palpatine as a hologram, or maybe Vader in the background or something. But this is really going to be like a boots on the ground story, it appears to be. And like Chris Bartlett said, George Lucas totally intended for this to be something for 7 to 12-year-olds. Now, the show, it doesn't look like it's for that audience per se. And we've heard Favreau and Filoni kind of reiterate the whole Star Wars is for 12-year-olds. And then at the 40th panel, George Lucas said it again, Star Wars is really for 12-year-olds. They didn't want him to say that, but he said it. And it's going to be interesting. There's several elements in this show that are rumored that are going to be not for 12-year-olds. And I really want to see the reaction that really kind of the general public will have to this. So
Yeah, I'm
funny
excited. On our show we always talk about, the kind of one of the main issues for the sequel trilogy is that they're still dealing with the Skywalker saga, and the Skywalker saga has rules. You can't break certain elements of the Skywalker storyline. So I've always said, let's hurry up and get to the Old Republic. Let's get to the Old Republic. Let's get as far away from the Skywalkers as we can. Not because I don't want to see Luke in his prime. Give me that all day. But I want a story where we don't have those expectations. We don't have those rules that we have to abide by. And this one sort of has some elements. You have to get Cassian from point A to point B by the end of this second season. But we're far enough away that they can have some leeway and have some freedom with telling a story, with diving into the Empire a little bit deeper than we've seen before. So that's what I'm most excited about, is how do you expand the lore and how do you take the audience along with you? Because we don't have those expectations as much as we do with other shows. People harp all day long about Kenobi, about the book of Boba Fett. There's certain things that people just say like, oh, that doesn't make any sense because of what so-and-so said in episode 5 or episode 4. So the further you can get away from those rules and those laws that Star Wars fans expect you to abide by, I think the better.
Do you guys think this show is also a little bit of a test for Disney to see about having a show that breaks those rules? And because it seems like Disney's still trying to figure out how to get themselves outside of the Skywalker saga. They quite haven't figured out the full formula for that there. And I feel like that this show is a really good test for them to maybe figure a few things out in the process, especially if it hits with really good reviews and strong popularity, because I really think that's really the next evolution that Disney has to take with Star Wars, is to get outside of the Skywalker saga. We're trapped. They've still got themselves a little bit trapped in that Skywalker saga box, whether it's going to the Old Republic or going to something so far in the future it's new. But I think we're at that point where Disney does need to explore that option. And I'm kind of hoping Andor gives them maybe a little bit of a formula, like, oh, hey, we can go out more outside the box with this.
Yeah, if we all remember, there was a point where Benioff and Weiss were going to do a trilogy, and then it went down to no, they're not going to do a trilogy. They're going to do one film, direct one film, and let two other people direct the other two films. And it went to, okay, well, they're not working with Lucasfilm at all. They signed a big Netflix deal, and the rumor was that they were going to do a story on the very first Jedi, which would have been really cool. It would have been totally divorced from Skywalker stuff and stuff that we had known. But that went down the tubes.
I can kind of feel too that with the sequel trilogy being so divisive with fans, that they're kind of picking and choosing parts of the world that we've seen, but some of the connective tissue between them not told yet. And maybe it's a safe play. I don't know if that's something, or if it's just like there's still so much of this established time frame that fans are familiar with and that most of them enjoy. Let's go ahead and let's go into those little sections and tell those stories. And I think that with the Tales of the Jedi, that trailer that we saw, that's something that they're going to try and do as well. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen like an old, Tales of the Jedi from like 1,000 years ago. Those are things that fans have been kind of wanting to see ever since the legend stories that originally came out. But I kind of feel they're kind of staying in a certain sandbox, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that was one of the successes of Star Wars Visions, though, was too, because a lot of those stories took place. They said it took place well far in the future of the Star Wars universe, and I think a lot of people were really the ones that were of those shorts that were more popular were the ones that took place outside of that universe, and people were like, yeah, I want more of this. And I think Visions kind of started opening up some eyes there, and then again with Andor, they can really take a different path with Star Wars than I think they've ever taken. And I think that's the most exciting thing I am about Andor, is just something different with Star Wars.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to get something that's going to be very, very much of a departure from what we've seen so far from Star Wars TV. And kind of going back to my point of giving people trilogies. We know Benioff and Weiss got the trilogy. We all know Rian Johnson got a trilogy. So there's a report out today on Fandom Wire that Tony Gilroy now has a first look deal with Lucasfilm. Is that incorrect, Kyle?
That they've actually pulled that back and actually issued a statement saying that they did not have all their facts for that story before they published it, and it is incorrect.
Interesting. Okay, because we've all been there before with Benioff and Weiss and Rian Johnson doing projects and being promised things that we never ended up getting.
Rogue Squadron.
Yep.
Yeah, that. Well, according to Rian Johnson, he still has a trilogy. So.
Yeah, but it's so strange though, because once he was given that trilogy, he did Knives Out, and then he created a brand new production company, and then he said, "No, I'm going to do sequels to Knives Out." And it's like, well, when are you going to work on Star Wars? And the promise was he was going to create everything from the ground up: the worlds, the characters, the story. That's a lot of work, and to have your hands in multiple pots and doing Star Wars simultaneously is probably not the best way to do Star Wars.
I just want to announce anything until at least you have like a script. Like for example, Taika.
Waititi.
Yeah. That, because I love him as a director, as an actor, and everything. But to me, when you're working on a Star Wars project, I think that should be like your main focus. Especially if you're announcing something as large as that, and then going out to the public and saying like, well, I've got these other projects. I've kind of put Star Wars back on the shelf for now, and at some point I'll get to it. It's like, no, if you're talking about Star Wars, that should be your main focus. Like, at least don't even announce like you're working on it unless you got a script and then it's actually in the works. Not being like, oh yeah, I'm
yeah, there's a bad Disney track record with that. I completely agree with you, Colin. Like, don't even announce just because they want some. I almost feel like they do it because they want some nice press. But yeah, don't even announce a project until you got this person confirmed and you got a script. Maybe it doesn't have to be completely done, but at least have a first draft.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this, because Kevin and I have had this conversation too. Is part of the problem that there's nobody at Lucasfilm who has the ability to tell Disney no? Where with Marvel, Kevin Feige has no problem telling the Disney board, "I've got this. Leave me alone."
I think for the most part, Disney leaves Lucasfilm alone, just like how it leaves Marvel alone to their own vices. Yeah. So I think at the very top of that pyramid is Kathleen Kennedy. She is the ultimate approver, a greenlighter. I mean, you have to go through her to get anything approved. John Knoll had to go through her to get Rogue One greenlit. Yeah. You had to set up a meeting with her, and thank God she loved it, and that went through, and it's now one of the biggest grossing IMAX films of all time.
I am telling you right now, if Dave Filoni ever like took over that position, we are going to be seeing like so many great like projects, like a lot, because of I just feel like there are projects that we don't know about that never got greenlit, and it just feels like Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau definitely have a bunch of these projects and a bunch of these ideas. And I just feel like there are a lot of, and from probably different people at Lucasfilm as well, that have a bunch of different ideas that we don't know about, but they have probably brought up and they never got greenlit. And most likely they were probably good, because I can't think of one bad project that Dave Filoni and John have done. Like I like honestly can't. Like they have not disappointed us so far. Every project that has come out, I've been excited about. There are some elements I will say in Book of Boba Fett. I've talked about this a decent amount, where there were some scenes where I felt like it wasn't my like the version of Boba Fett that I thought was gonna come to be. For example, when he's fighting Black Chrysanthemum and he gets his he like gets completely like being the crap out of, and then they're fighting him downstairs, and then Boba Fett walks downstairs wearing a bathrobe. It's like, to me, Boba Fett would have put on some armor and would have been ready to continue the fight, not be like, oh, hey, is the fight done? And I understand that, being put in a Sarlacc pit and almost dying changes, someone, but I don't think changing them to that point to where like they're like completely different. I mean, I can't.
He was a crime lord, just so you know. Crime lords.
Whoa, yeah. Well,
they have to have some nice, out of business wear,
But fighting a Wookiee though, just walking downstairs and being like, "Oh, the like fight's done," is like everything good. Wearing a bathrobe to me was just like. I think because the mystery was gone from Boba Fett, I think that's where it got me. And I think that's how people felt when they did the prequels with telling the story of Anakin, because of Darth Vader's, his whole backstory was a mystery until then, and it kept people, thinking and coming up with ideas of what his story was like, and that was the same with Boba Fett. We really didn't know that much about the character, and I think a lot of people like that. And when the show came out, it was like, oh, okay, interesting. This is an interesting take, and I loved the show. I thought it was done well. I'm glad that Mara Morrison actually got to play more in the Star Wars universe and to continue the Fett legacy. I thought that was amazing. Seeing him back in Mandalorian season 2 was incredible. So I just think that we need more Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau.
Agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think when you talk about too, like the mysteries, when you talk about Anakin and Boba Fett, I think part of that is too because we have that mystery. That mystery is part of the reason why we fall in love with a particular character. We develop our own headcanon for that, and when somebody else writes something that isn't what's in our own headcanon,
Right.
it throws us off. And
Yeah.
because we live in a world now where everything we can give an instant reaction to, it just adds to those flames burning up, to where if we would have gone back to the days before Twitter and even the internet, and when we just would have written a letter to like Starlog or one of these magazines or something like that, you don't have that fire, and I think people then find it easier to accept. But now that fire just constantly burns, so
Yep.
I think it makes it a lot harder for story writers in that aspect too, because they're telling what they think is a good story, but everybody has their own headcanon too. So,
Yeah. Like I because something that a lot of people have been debating about is, which is a question for all of you. Do you think that they should give the origins of Yoda, of where he's from and what his species is? Because I don't think they should. I think they should completely like leave that alone. Because that is one of the greatest mysteries in Star Wars, and I think they should keep it that way. Because he's such a wise character, and just learning about him more would be great, but not to the point where like we know exactly where he's from and his species and everything. I think that would throw off so many people, and I think George Lucas would, he wanted to keep that a mystery. So I think if they went, past that, I think that would definitely throw things off out of balance.
Yeah, I think whatever George wanted, if Filoni's there, it's definitely going to be honored.
Yeah.
If it's as sacred as something like that. So, but we are going to get to see more of Yaddle in Tales of the Jedi, apparently.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what if they do it there, Colin? What if they explain the origins there?
I don't think they would. I think if they ever would do that, it would be in live action. But I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something I wanted to bring up on tomorrow's episode as well. But in the trailer that came out for Tales of the Jedi, you see Yaddle like her like full out like just shot of her in a room. And if you look at the room, the back doors behind her look very similar to the hangar doors in from Attack of the Clones, of where Count Dooku goes to the darker part of Coruscant, and then he meets with Palpatine. So and then there's a different shot in the trailer where Count Dooku and Yaddle are fighting. So how cool would it be if maybe we see the canon way on how Yaddle dies, and it's Count Dooku that ends up killing her, because we know she doesn't make it to Attack of the Clones. In Legends, she sacrifices herself to save Anakin. So it would be very interesting if they went that route where Yaddle maybe kind of picked up that Count Dooku was doing something that he wasn't supposed to, and then that's Count Dooku's way of turning to the dark side, and we just never knew about it until now.
I think whatever we get from Tales of the Jedi is going to be a success. I don't know any spoilers. I don't know much about what they're going to show, other than the fact that there's going to be 3 episodes in regards to Ahsoka Tano, her origins, and then 3 episodes on Count Dooku. But I think we have 2 hits on our hands right now. Andor is going to probably be a huge hit, and Tales of the Jedi is going to be a hit. And we all know Andor is going to conclude with a 2nd season, which apparently they're going to start shooting in November, I believe. But we're not going to get it till 2024, I believe. Yeah. So it's a little ways off. But
I think we better get used to heavier VFX TV shows and movies taking a little longer to make than what they have been. I think that's something that we need. That's a reality we need to accept, and that's why when I look at this, like at the Marvel panel schedule, I'm like, there's no way that this schedule is going to hold up, because Hollywood has become so reliant on VFX that it's just, and the houses are so overburdened at this point. I think we're gonna have to see a slowdown at some point, or we might not have anything for a while.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about the VFX houses not having enough workers doing the work, and there's stories coming out that Marvel is kind of pushing it a little bit with these CGI artists, and there's not enough of them. And I think there's some rumblings that they're underpaid and overworked, and I think we can kind of gradually see some of the CGI not be as good as it has been in the past. I know a lot of the trailers that we've seen come out, everyone talks about the CGI on how it's just either not good or it's just not complete yet. And if you look at a show like She-Hulk, the trailers were not great revealing She-Hulk, and the show I think in general is okay. I don't know if Ted, you can speak to that. I know you talk a lot about Marvel, but what are your thoughts on that, Ted?
She-Hulk is fantastic, and it did take me up until episode 4 to understand exactly what show I'm watching. I'm not watching a Marvel show. I'm not watching a superhero show. I'm watching Seinfeld in the MCU, and that's what She-Hulk is. So whatever expectations you have about story, superheroes, villains, antagonists, throw it out the window. You're watching Seinfeld mixed in a lawyer show in the MCU. That's exactly what it is, and all fans would appreciate it more if they put themselves in that mindset.
That's a good point. Kyle and I cover the show weekly on our True Believers podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network, and I don't read the comics, and Kyle kind of gave me a heads up of what possibly to expect. And so I kind of went into it, as you just said, knowing that it was going to be different. And I kind of got it right away because I threw out all expectations of any other Marvel show. And I also, that's a good way to describe it, but also I would describe it as it's such a fun show because it brings us into the world as if right now, if we were just normal humans living in a superhero world, the questions that we would ask, what would happen in this legal situation with this superhero? And so it brings you in that way. And that's what makes it so fun, is that all of these stories that they're telling, they're kind of looking at the fans going, we're listening to you. We know what you would want to say and what you'd think. And that's what makes the show a pleasant surprise for me. I can't speak for Kyle, but I think it's somewhere around there as well. Kyle, what do you say?
I'm loving it because it's something different, and it's something I've been kind of preaching with the whole Marvel Phase 4 experience, especially on the TV side, is they are trying different things. And the sad part is that Marvel can't seem to win right now. By the time Endgame rolled around, everybody's like, oh, yes, there's this Marvel movie formula, and they just follow that, and they really need to change it up. So they start changing it up and doing some different things, and people are like, well, this isn't the Marvel I know. What's going on here? Let them do what they're going to do. Like Kevin Feige has said, the MCU is at this point now where it's developed and grown enough. Now it's its own living thing, basically. And they're not following the comics to a T. They're using them as a guideline, but they're building things that exist within this MCU movie universe that they've built. And it's a great example of world building. I think we're finally seeing that with Star Wars as well, with what Filoni and Favreau are trying to do within the Disney Plus shows. I think there's a few more complications there than there are with Marvel, because Marvel just has such a huge base to pull from already for ideas. But yeah, I'm loving She-Hulk. It's something different. It's something fun. It's the same reason why I'm really enjoying like Star Trek Lower Decks right now, because we've had so much stuff that's been dark and gritty, and we're having these shows now that are just being fun, and they're different, and you watch it and you enjoy it and you move on. And it's been phenomenal, and I'm really excited for Charlie Cox's return as Daredevil and She-Hulk, which will hopefully be Thursday.
We've been saying that for weeks, so hopefully Thursday.
Yeah, it is, however, an incredible time to be alive and be us with Game of Thrones on Sunday. They're going to have Andor on Wednesday, She-Hulk Thursday, and then Friday Rings of Power. I mean, it's a fully loaded slate for me personally. I have to watch all these shows. So, yeah, we can't complain too much. But when you look at the landscape right now and you look at Disney strategy, I'm always trying to figure out exactly what they're trying to do. Of course, with the cancellation of Rogue One, 2025 is the next date where they have a movie date for December 2025 for a film in cinemas. My question is, why don't they take something like Andor, which I think is the very first, maybe after The Mandalorian, something that can actually be played in cinemas and we can actually go pay to see maybe a day or two before, the weekend before, and then have the episode drop on Disney Plus? What are the limitations? Why aren't they doing that? Because we all know they did the premiere and they showed the first 3 episodes at a red carpet premiere. They did it today in London or in the UK somewhere. They showed 3 episodes to the public. So the question is, why don't they just do that with these shows?
I can't imagine a boardroom at Disney going, we hate money. So,
Exactly.
And we touched on this before, seeing Rogue One on the big screen made a lot of us miss seeing Star Wars on the big screen. And I think that they should definitely entertain that. I mean, just show it over the weekend. You don't have to have it go on for 3 weeks, because obviously those episodes are going to become old when the new ones come out. But that would just be so fun. Get people back in the theater again, support the theaters as well. And let's see some type of Star Wars on the big screen again. I'm all for that. I know Kyle was feeling that way, right, dude?
There's a 2-pronged thing to this. I'm ready. I want to see Star Wars on the big screen. After seeing it on Rogue One on IMAX, I'm very excited for that. But I can flip it over and look at the business side of it too. And you guys talk about Disney making money. They just raised the price of Disney Plus. They've got to justify that price being raised. And so why put Andor in the theaters when we got to justify our Disney Plus and they made Andor, it's been kind of one of their crown jewels right around this time. They've raised the price. So I understand why they're probably not in a rush to put it in theaters, because why are we trying to take people away from watching something at home that we're trying to get subscribers to, and we got to justify this price increase, but then we say, hey, go see this in the theater. Yes, the diehard fans are going to see it, but I think there's another thing that's going on here is Regal Cinemas in bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do believe there's a race between Amazon, Apple, and Disney for one of them to start their own theater chain. And then they can use that theater chain to distribute things like the first 3 episodes and/or out exclusively to their own theater chain, instead of having to negotiate with AMC or Regal or whoever to get these things into the theater as a special event. So I think there's a lot of chess pieces moving on the board, and we are still in such a weird place where we still want to go to the theaters and see things, but we got really spoiled by everything being on streaming, especially because of the pandemic. And I think you're also having these companies trying to reevaluate and rebalance how much goes on streaming, how much goes to the theater. And that's where I go back to something that I give Kevin Feige a lot of credit for. He fought to continue to have movies going into the theater during the pandemic. He fought so hard for Black Widow to make it to the theaters. Disney had to give in and say, okay, we're doing a simultaneous streaming movie release for this, because they just wanted to put it on Disney Plus and be done with it. And I think we're kind of moving back a little bit to the theaters, but we're not there yet. And I think, like I said, there's a race between Apple, Disney, and Amazon who's going to buy their own theater chain or start their own theater chain. And then when that happens, you're going to see a lot more of this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I
that
kinda
was
agree with
actually some of my thinking too.
Yeah, on the business side, it costs a lot of money to get a movie out in theaters. It costs a lot of money to get a project into theaters. There's additional advertising that takes place, shipping costs, distribution costs, all that stuff goes into it. And so far, hybrid releases haven't really shown, I think, a positive attendance numbers for hybrid releases. A good example is going to be next month when Halloween Ends goes into theaters, but it's also being released on streaming. Are people still going to show up at the box office knowing they can watch it in the comfort of their own home, hours later, maybe the next day or something? So I think for the investors or for the board or whoever makes those decisions, I think it's still a big gamble. Is it going to make a profit? Is the profit big enough to make us or allow us to do this? It might not be worth it to them to just make a small profit. Rogue One made 2.5 million with its re-release. Is that a win? Is that a success to them? I'm not really sure. Maybe Rogue One being re-released was a test to see, does this work? Does this gamble work in these cases? So we shall see.
You bring up Rogue One. I think the other big test is actually coming out this Friday. Avatar gets re-released completely. The original Avatar to get ready for Way of the Water. But you have a whole and James Cameron brought up this point in an interview, and it's actually quite interesting. You have a whole generation that never has seen Avatar on the big screen. And especially, I mean, I remember when Avatar came out, especially 3D IMAX, you were just like blown away by the visuals. Yeah. I mean, and to this day, I will say Avatar is the greatest looking 3D film ever.
God, you make me feel old when you put generation and Avatar in the same sentence, man.
Right? Blame James Cameron. Blame James Cameron.
Yeah, blame James Cameron. But I really think
re-release. I don't know how many times this movie's been re-released so far. It feels like
this is the one that they're really advertising, and they put some money into the advertising for this because I'm seeing a lot of ads over the last couple of weeks for it. So I'm curious to see what kind of numbers the Avatar is going to pull out because it's been so long, and I will go see Way of the Water because if nothing else, I know I'm going to get a visual experience with that film. But am I like just excited and boiling over for it like I was when the first Avatar came out? Not even close. So. But it's going to be interesting to see how that re-release does in the theaters.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'd like to introduce straight out of Yavin 4, we have Craig 4 joining us.
What's up, Craig? Welcome.
Hello, Craig.
Good to see you guys.
So yeah, Craig, what are your thoughts on Andor coming up?
And Max Rebo.
Max Rebo, Empire Strikes Back.
All right.
The Last Jedi.
Okay. All right.
Everybody's like, what?
So yeah, you miss Chris Bartlett and you miss Colin's face when he said Max Rebo got incinerated.
Yeah, no
way.
Yup. No. As soon as he said that, like, and he got done talking, I brought it up again, and I was like, I don't think that's
beat me to it. You beat me to it.
Yeah. I was like, whoa. So yeah,
he had the night off. Everybody knows it.
That's exactly what we were all saying. That's exactly
Max
what we were all saying.
Big deal, and so he had a lot of places to be.
Yep.
No way. He's not. Max lives.
Yep.
So Craig, what are your thoughts on Andor? What are you expecting to see?
That's a great question. I feel like it will probably be a little bit slow the first couple episodes. But I think it's gonna be something really unique. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be a great show. Honestly, I don't know. They say we're going to be tested on like seeing things from different perspectives, and like I think it's going to look like the rebellion is like doing all these horrible things, and maybe the Empire is not as horrible as they look, and somehow it's going to twist things around, kind of like like Game of Thrones. You know how there's always kind of good and bad toward a lot of the characters, except for like Joffrey or Bolton, right? But you know what I mean? Like there's always these interesting aspects of them that they're complex. And so I'm hoping it's going to be something like that.
Yeah, that's I think that's what everyone's kind of anticipating. Did you get to see any of the social media reactions and
A little,
non-spoiler reviews?
a little bit. I did go to see Rogue One again in the theater, and so I saw that clip that they had on it, and it seemed pretty interesting to me. I like that guy. He was in Chernobyl, and I really liked him in Chernobyl. Did you guys see that?
You talking about Stellan Skarsgård?
Yeah, I really liked.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
always
he
I always
turned in-
remember him as in Ronin, where he played that kind of like really hardcore kind of assassin guy that joined the crew. I don't know if you guys remember that scene or that character or not. Good movie.
So I don't know. I mean, I think we're interested or going to see something different that we haven't really seen with Star Wars before. More like character development. But I'm interested. I don't need the fan service. I mean, we love it. You know, we love it like when we saw in Rogue One and Vader going crazy. I mean, that was like incredible. But if it's something different, I'm interested to see it. Especially with so many other projects coming out. You know, with, you know, Ahsoka coming out and Mandalorian coming out and, you know, Tales of the Jedi. And so we have so many things to look forward to. It'll be nice if something has a different feel to it, but we have all these other things that we can think, well, if we don't quite like this, we have all this other stuff coming out.
Yeah, with Andor coming out tomorrow, they pushed it back from an August release date to September, which pushes back the Bad Batch to January 4th, which will probably push back the Mandalorian season 3 to an April timeframe. Also in April will be Celebration. So do you think we'll get the first maybe couple episodes at Celebration possibly in London?
That's a
I'm
good.
hoping. Yeah.
Are you guys going to London? You're going?
Yeah, Colin and I
Yeah.
are.
Nice.
Are you going, Craig?
Well, I had tried to get the tickets, but they sold out so fast.
Well, I mean, with tickets, I mean, there's always that ticket exchange
Yeah.
Yeah.
thing.
But I mean,
I don't
I
think tickets are
was
an issue.
considering it if I could have went all the days, but then it was like the Saturday one sold out so quick. I was like, this is crazy. It was like just a few hours, right?
It was minutes, really, because I tried buying the 4-day badge immediately, and they had sold out. So I had to buy individuals, which was weird, and I've never done that before. But and it was more
I had to
expensive.
do that when I went to Celebration London. What was it, like 6 or 7 years ago?
Okay.
It sold out like the 3-day pass. It was 3 days at that time, and yeah, I remember I had to buy individual ones for each day.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing about Celebration, and you know it, David. It's ridiculous trying to get into these premiere events, and then half the seats are empty, and they're turning people away. And we saw it at every show. Tell me we didn't. I mean, there were at least another few hundred minimum seats that could have went to the Obi-Wan premiere or all these other premieres. They just turn people away. There's no reason.
I don't know if London will be the same.
I think.
Okay. Well, here I will rephrase it. I hope London is not the same because of we had some friends that were right behind you where like Craig was one of the last people that got in, and then everyone else that was part of our group like just missed the cut, and you were right. There were a couple of hundreds of seats, and it was like, why aren't those filled? Because they filled all of those for the Mandalorian Plus panel. Like all those seats were filled, every single one of them.
Think about even Rise of Skywalker in Chicago. How many?
Yeah.
That was really shocking.
Right?
That was nuts.
All they have to do is have ushers say, go all the way to the end of the row and just continue to funnel people in slowly to the end of the row. And then everybody gets in.
For the Mandalorian Plus panel, people were sitting on the actual like steps, like not in the seats, in the actual steps. Like that room was packed. Yeah. And I was like, why on earth was the Lucasfilm panel not like that? Like that was crazy to me.
Exactly.
So, Kevin, so when you were at the Excel Center in London, did you experience anything like that? Were there empty seats and Any of the panels you maybe went
Oh
to?
God, no! They were all full. Of course,
Oh,
back
okay.
in those days, you know,
They weren't doing
you
the
waited
lottery
in-
system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was no lottery
Oh,
system. It
okay.
was the old school line waiting, you know,
Mm.
and yeah, getting there early for that type of thing too. So
I
actually,
miss those
to
days.
clarify, there was a wristband thing. That's what they were doing, and you had to show up in a line to get the wristband. And then once the wristbands were done, then that was it. But everyone that got the wristband ended up showing up. And you know, I remember I was there for the Mark Hamill panel. I got to ask the first question. I was there for several of the others, and they were all full as far as I remember.
Interesting.
Gosh, I
Very
remember the days
cool.
of Celebration 5 in Orlando when I could just walk into any panel without really any problem.
Well, and like the big Lucasfilm panel, then you'd have to line up all night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the main, I wound up sleeping in the floor for that one.
I will never do that ever again.
It was horrible.
The last
It
one I
was-
did was for the Last Jedi panel at Celebration in Orlando.
Oh, that's worse than the movie. And that's saying
At least I met Ryan briefly and got an autograph and a picture, but
Same.
that was before I saw the movie. So
Yeah. So I'm the opposite. I love camping in line. Like, no joke, our podcast would not exist if we didn't like meet each other in line. I met David and Craig both in line. And we were camping out. We were having a great time. Now I understand that everyone wants to, do that, or they can, or they can't. But I think there would be other alternatives to doing it, because it's just like something that David definitely talks about is he won the lottery in 2019 for the Rise of Skywalker panel. And then he was sitting there, and then someone, like tapped him on the shoulder and was like, "Hey, is this panel like is this panel like a big deal or something?" And I just remember hearing that. I'm just like, there are so many other people that wanted to be there, and then people who apply for these lotteries, not end up getting anything at all, who are flying across the world, possibly not having the potential of getting in, and just because you apply for something in the lottery doesn't mean that you'll get it. Our friend Hunter didn't win anything in this past one. Like, I think he won like the Industrial Light and Magic one, but that was it. He didn't win Bad Batch, Lucasfilm, like none of it. And some people are flying across the world for this stuff, so I'm blown away, because it's like that. Yeah.
Because on top of that, you don't even know until how many days beforehand?
Like maybe 2 or 3 days. Like it's not.
Yeah. I don't think it's fair. I mean, you're going to spend what, $5,000 or so to travel that, and then you don't even know till like the day before.
Yep.
Yeah.
It could be-
Every year there's a rumor that San Diego Comic-Con is going to go to a full lottery system. Thank God it hasn't, because
oh no.
like Colin, I like the camping out portion of it. I've been to 4 different Comic-Cons, and I've met directors like James Wan, Andy Serkis, Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder, the first year I went, 2015, pulled up in the Batmobile from Batman v Superman. He pulled up in the Batmobile, doors pop open, he jumps out with a duffel bag, starts reaching in, and he's chucking hats and t-shirts to the crowd, like just baller Zack Snyder would. That was also the last year that Star Wars attended San Diego Comic-Con and sort of the full presentation, and it was probably the best that they had ever done presentation-wise. So I actually miss the days that Star Wars held presentations in Hall H.
Yeah, so I'm very hopeful that they go back to the old days, because camping in line was just something that just feels like convention wise, because so many people have become friends. Like, I mean, again, this podcast wouldn't exist if we all didn't meet in that line. So it's something that I hold dearly and I'm passionate about, and I really hope that they bring back line waiting. What?
I said there'd be 19 sad listeners if the podcast didn't exist.
I think the problem is as these conventions and fandom in general has just become so amazingly bigger that these buildings don't have a choice. They have to do these lottery systems because they can't have these overnight fan lines because the fire marshal's just standing there waiting for the first excuse he can to shut it down.
We can't have a repeat of 2017 Orlando. That was just horrible. And there's other places and times during Celebration to meet people and hang out, but that was a cluster, you know what? And that soured my ever wanting to stay overnight in a line ever again. And you know, I'm 52 now. I'm too old to do stuff like that. I'm sorry. I'm staying in my bed.
You can actually hire people these days to stand or sit in line for you. So, Kevin, there you go.
Yeah, I don't want to spend any more money than I have to Celebration. I'm sorry. I've got priorities. I don't need to do that. I'll wait to see it, or if I don't get in. And that's I took that approach at this Celebration here in Anaheim. I decided to not try to queue up in anything. Yeah. I just wanted to do freeform and relax, and it was one of the most fun times I've had at a Celebration, not having to stress about getting this and getting that. And if I have to, I'll watch it later online. I just wanted to hang out with people.
And you know what? Let me say this too real quick. On top of going there and you might not get into the panel, then you can't even see the footage anywhere. Like I was saying to David earlier in another episode, have it so it's continuously running in a theater, and they just make sure that nobody's got their phone on them, so everybody has an opportunity to see it.
I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I've attended some of the biggest conventions in the world, and I, as an attendee, have no issue with them releasing teasers or trailers online. The in-person experience is always going to be 100 times better than seeing it on a cell phone, a TV screen, a computer screen. I don't know what the purpose is anymore of keeping those things and not releasing them, because we're all going to see it eventually. And the in-person experience, it's always 1,000 times better.
I 100% agree with that.
24 hours later. Yeah. Release it 24 hours later. I mean,
or even just a few hours later. I mean, that day or that night, have the panel in the morning. We see the exclusive stuff. They can have the room next door or the adjoining rooms, the Galaxy stage or whatever. They have multiple stages where they show the big panels on the screen. When that's over, just keep it running on a loop, and everyone in the building can watch it, and just you can tell the audience, hey, look, we know everyone has a phone. You don't have to record this. You don't have to upload this because we're about to upload it, but you get the first view of it on a big screen. So enjoy that. You spent all the money to be there. You get the exclusive first look. And then a few hours or that night, release it to the public. And then the public doesn't have to go to YouTube and watch the grainy, shaky cam of the 4K image that they show us, and just kind of dilute the whole kind of first experience for everyone.
We all just pay and privately hire the guy who leaked all the Grand Theft Auto footage over the last couple of days.
Yeah, dude, that was
which
nuts.
I still think is a guerrilla marketing campaign. Like, Rockstar knows what they're doing. It's just a guerrilla marketing. They know what they're doing. Listen, to this day, I want to say it was 2017, Marvel released a Luis from Ant-Man video of him recapping phases 1 through 3. Luis from Ant-Man recapped the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. They only released that at Michael Pena, exactly. They only released it in Hall H that year. It never saw the light of day. I never saw a hidden cam of it.
Wrong.
It is the best thing Marvel's ever done, and the public's never got a chance to see it.
It's ridiculous.
I'm still petitioning Kevin Feige to release it, but we'll see what happens.
I'll talk to him.
Thank you.
I don't think anything will ever top that in-person experience of seeing these panels, and I mean it's just like seeing like the movies in the actual movie theater. Nothing will ever top that experience. And to me, like, Star Wars was always meant for the big screen. It's great to have, The Mandalorian, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Book of Boba Fett, where we can just, wake up every morning, like when it comes out, and go on the couch and turn on the TV. That's great. But seeing Star Wars with a big crowd, that has always been like a huge thing since the very, very beginning, all the way back in 1977. Like that was like Star Wars was meant for big crowds and for like everyone, and it never used to be like this exclusive thing. And as much as I love being in a room and they end up like putting it on screen for everyone like in that room, and then they're like just like it won't go online later or anything. I think I'm hoping that changes, because of there's definitely exclusive stuff where like I would love to relive that on screen again. Like I was just watching it on my phone or something, because of that trailer, that extended trailer that they showed of season 3 of Mandalorian. And the Mandalorian Plus panel was awesome, and the Ahsoka teaser. And I don't think we're ever gonna see the like of that at all online at all. And I'm just really bummed, because the trailer music and everything for it was incredible. And I just hope
how crazy it is. They only released that Mandalorian thing for Disney Plus Day. And when did we go to Celebration? 6 months ago?
May. So yeah. May.
Feels like 6 months ago.
Yeah, numbers, words, yeah.
But yeah, Colin, that's going to be us flying across the Atlantic Ocean to go to Celebration this time around.
I'm telling you, I'm really nervous about that lottery system, because I was nervous in California. I was at Disneyland, and my wife and everyone was having a good time, and I was sitting there. I'm like, if I'm not at that Lucasfilm panel, I'm going to lose it, because I knew they were going to have exclusive stuff there, and sure enough, like everyone that was there got to go to the season premiere of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we actually got to watch it with the actors in the crowd. Like you cannot beat that experience. And I was like, I almost missed it because of I didn't get lucky. And it's like it should be people waiting in line, and I missed those days. And it's I was at Disneyland, and my wife just like looked at me and was like, just relax, we'll figure something out. Because I was sitting there just being like, I just feel like my trip's gonna be ruined if I'm not at that panel. And thank God everything worked out. But being in London, I'm gonna be more nervous, because it's like I'm traveling overseas. I'm traveling all the way out here, and there's a chance that I might not get to go to the #1 panel that I want to, and it's because of luck. And I just think that's something that they should try and consider, of finding a common ground to where they can still do that, but then people can still camp in line. I don't know what that is, but
I know
my advice for London is take advantage of London itself. Take some extra time to enjoy London.
You sound like my wife, Kevin.
Well, when you get outside of your Star Wars bubble, especially with wherever that you are, you'll find that you will enjoy that as well, because there's a lot of Star Wars that can go on in London outside of the celebration. Just saying.
I know.
Yeah. So did you get to check out any sites when you were there, Kevin?
Oh, hell yeah. I've been to London several times. So yeah,
okay.
A lot of the people that were there took bus tours to, obviously, other tourist locations and other cities outside of London, like Bath and Windsor and stuff like that. So make sure you don't just fly in and fly out. Try to spend a few days looking around, because whether you want to go to Abbey Road or you want to go to Winston Churchill's, hidden fortress that he was there during World War II. There's a lot of stuff to do in London. It's an ancient city with a lot of history, and it's beautiful. So make sure you check it out.
What do you recommend? What's like the top 3 things that we should probably check out?
Obviously, check out Buckingham Castle. That is a sight to be seen. It's gorgeous, and also make sure you do a little history on, or do a little research on the subway system there, because that'll get you around to a lot of the cool places there.
Canary Wharf, where they shot Rogue One.
Yeah, you can. There's a stop there on the subway that you can get there and check that out. It's pretty cool. But yeah, those just a couple things there. Obviously, you can go to Baker Street as well if you're a Sherlock Holmes fan. But the most famous one is if you want to get your picture taken there at Abbey Road, because there is a tube station there that you can walk to right there. But looking at it like a bus tour too, that'll take you. I mean, dude, go see those famous stones that have been around since the aliens dropped them there. Apparently, Stonehenge. Go there.
Yeah, I think we're doing Stonehenge, and I think we're doing Professor Tolkien's grave. As well.
Make sure if you're there.
No, honestly, it was something I was excited for.
Make sure you check that stuff out. And also, too, if you're a Harry Potter fan, you can go out to the Harry Potter Warner Brothers studios as well. Yeah. And by the time this celebration happens, you might be able to go check out where Andor was filmed, when they were building that little city over there. Yeah. Look into that. There's 501st groups out there that'll show, yes, I know where that is.
Reach out to them before you go. Do that first. Yes.
yes. Make sure you do that, because that city has a lot to offer. So, and if you're going to be spending the money going out there, just put a little extra aside for that as well. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's great advice.
Yeah, I'll consider going. Have
you ever been, Craig?
No.
No? Oh, okay.
No. But like I said, the other thing is that if I knew who the celebrities that were signing were ahead of time too, that makes a big difference. They wait till like the last minute to have people signing, and you don't even know who's going to be coming or not coming. It's like everything feels rushed.
That might have been COVID related, I think, regarding, and also the delay of the last celebration. But prior to that, you knew like at least 6 months in advance some bigger names. So hopefully we'll see that.
It happened again at DragonCon this
slowly. Like I remember they did Felicity right away, and then every week they'd like release one or two more. But it's like, it'd be nice if you had an idea who was going.
Well, I think the other problem is, and Kevin brought up a point with pandemic and COVID and stuff like that. It happened even at DragonCon this year. DragonCon literally just days before the convention opened had like 6 guests canceled because they got sick.
Yeah.
And there was some
COVID's still a thing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Very much so, yeah.
I was actually bummed I wasn't at DragonCon this year. This is probably the first one I've missed like in 4 years. So I was really bummed. But I just bought my tickets for the one happening next year. Nice. Before they bump up the prices, because I think it was a couple of days ago it was just under $100. Now it's like going up. So
there's a lot of weird stories coming out of DragonCon this year about the hotels and just the whole vibe of the convention this year.
Yeah, I've missed the last 2 years, but I was a staple of that since a long time, and I do miss it. It's a great con.
Love it. Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting because we have so many new shows coming out that they can talk about or show clips of or announce. So, that's pretty cool. We're in this place with Star Wars now that there's so many projects going on, whereas, in the last handful of years, like you didn't have much. It was just like a movie, and then you had to wait 3 years to hear about the next movie.
And hey, maybe by London they'll actually have a movie we can talk about.
No, that
probably not. Probably not. I would be surprised. I mean, I could see maybe Taika just kind of walking out and at least maybe talking about the plot a little bit, but I
has to start writing. He hasn't even. He's flat out admitted
you
he hasn't
are
even
preaching to the choir, Kyle. I've been saying this for a very long time. I know
he is too stretched, too thin, and I'm almost wondering when we're going to start having a little bit of the Taika. We have had too much of you backlash. As much as everybody loves him, he's everywhere, and I'm like, maybe we need to find some different voices here because we can't have one man writing all of our entertainment.
I would love Dave Filoni, just to do like a full out movie, like him, Jon Favreau, like of just them to just do like a full out movie, not a show, like a movie, because that first episode of season 2 of Mandalorian felt like a movie, and just like that whole battle with the crate dragon of where I went from someone help me out. It like went from like the small screen to like widescreen, and then went back at the end. I was like, that was incredible. Like I loved that, and it went by like so quick, and then the episode was done. I was like, I want more, and that episode was kind of long actually. So I think if they did a movie, it would crush it.
I find it interesting. We have all these percolating rumors that Pedro kind of, I think, kicked off himself about maybe the whole Mando, quote unquote, Mandoverse ending in some kind of film.
That's what it's leading up to, I think. Yeah.
Really?
Well, Kathleen Kennedy said it in an investor call about the climactic event.
Don't you guys think we have at least a few more seasons of Mando, though?
Oh yeah. Like, I mean, I don't think it's gonna happen. I mean, soon. I could see it.
You could have it happen and then have Mando continue. I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah.
It just depends on how they end it, because in 2025 there is the untitled Star Wars movie that could potentially be it. I mean, I hope not, because I think there's so much more ground to cover, because you have that 30-year gap from Return of the Jedi all the way to Force Awakens, and there's so much to cover leading up to the sequels, and there's so much to make us more interested in the sequels as well. And we will definitely see it in season 3 of Mando. I just have a feeling that we will. And it would just be weird to like go to do Mandalorian season 3, jump into Ahsoka, then do another season of the Book of Boba Fett skeleton crew, and be like, all right, here we go, boom. You know, it would just be weird. So I'm hoping it's down the line. Plus, if they do it the same year they have the Avengers movies come out in 2025, I think that would just kind of be them shooting themselves in the foot and kind of competing with themselves.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention this earlier on someone else's point that they were making about the lack of films that we're getting now. But I heard Sam Witwer on an interview that he did, that he was talking about how last decade he found out about something like 200 pitches were made by 200 separate people, entities, to Kathleen Kennedy about making an Obi-Wan film. And they decided on one person's project, and then it got devolved or evolved to the TV show. So it feels like, to me, Lucasfilm needs to loosen up the reins a little bit, because every time they grab someone, they grab like the hot director to do the next thing, and they make that announcement and we get all excited, and then it doesn't happen. I think there's smaller creators. There's other people out there with talent that aren't names. And we always point to the fact that Feige found the Russo brothers. He found Peyton Reed. I mean, it's just kind of one of those things. It's like you need to like loosen the reins a little bit.
And one of the things that Lucasfilm has done so well, learning from what Marvel has done, is develop their own pool of directors. Why isn't Deborah Chow's name being thrown out for a movie? Why isn't Bryce Dallas Howard's name being thrown out to do a Star Wars movie? Why can't they get somebody who they've already kind of built in-house, who's proven that they can do this? You know, why isn't I think Dave wants to finish Ahsoka out. I think once Ahsoka is done, I think Dave's really going to start looking at the movie side, doing a movie, because I think Favreau, I think Ahsoka is kind of like his full graduation to full on, okay, now you're really ready to direct a movie. And I think because of everything that he's been just basically absorbing everything Favreau has been teaching him about.
There's people with less experience than him that have done movies, and I think Filoni's ready. I think he's in his wheelhouse. I mean, I don't know if it's because he doesn't want to do a movie. I don't know. I mean, he should.
Well, yeah, he should. I just think he wants to get done with the Ahsoka series first.
Yeah, I think that's eventual. But I mean, to me, there's just so many other creators out there that can actually make some really good content for us as far as like films go. I mean, there's so many great filmmakers. But of course, we all know that a lot of filmmakers don't want to touch Star Wars. even before the backlash that The Last Jedi got. But I
No,
mean, there's a lot of people that want to still work in the Star Wars playground.
You know, I saw somebody say recently online that one of the things about Star Wars is that the shows that are out are not must-see shows. Like Lord of the Rings is, I guess, becoming, or Game of Thrones, really, right?
Mhm.
And it's like this must-see event show that everybody, you know what I mean? Not just the Star Wars fans that love it, but like something that's like you've got to see this new Star Wars show. And
I think streaming's changed that so much too. Streaming has changed that appointment television aspect of it, because I can watch it anytime during that first day, where when you had, like, when Walking Dead was appointment television, or when Game of Thrones was appointment television, it was like if you didn't watch it at that time slot, you were spoiled by the next day, because it's all anybody was talking about. And unless you could find it on demand, which they usually didn't put it on demand until at least the next episode came out, you were kind of stuck. Where now with streaming, these shows hit, and I mean, you can, everybody's got up at 3 a.m. and watched it. Well, I'm not going to get up at 3 a.m. I'm going to get up when I normally get up, and I'll watch it then. I mean, now the trick is staying off social media so you don't get spoiled for it.
Yeah, I think Craig has a good point there, though, because you look at Stranger Things season 4. I think that was like a must-watch show. And now with House of the Dragon, I think that's must-watch television. Everyone's watching it. Everyone's commenting on it. It's a great show. It's more than an hour long. It's what we all thought these Disney Plus TV shows for Star Wars were going to be, more than an hour long. And now every episode we get, it's like 30 to 50 minutes long, with credits taking up a chunk of that time as well.
Yeah, they're not. I agree. That's a big point. Yeah.
I'm hoping that the Skeleton Crew will change that, because I believe that's now recorded as the second most expensive TV show made in history. So with that budget, you would hope that those episodes would be long. Even though we were hoping that like Mandalorian and all these other ones that we've already gotten were long. At least an hour, at least over an hour, but we'll see.
I'll be curious. I mean, you look at, Andor's got 12 episodes, but we're already seeing that it's falling within that 35 to 45-minute episode. I'm kind of curious when Daredevil comes out at 18 episodes, which is to this date will be the longest one season of anything Disney Plus has ever done. What we're looking at for episode times for that, so I think that's gonna be interesting. But to Craig's point too, I don't feel like there's been anything on Disney Plus that feels like it's a must watch in the general populace, a must watch television show. That includes the Marvel.
I think you can count the Mandalorian in there.
Yeah,
I think the Mandalorian was one of those.
Yeah.
I think the Mandalorian became that because of the fascination with Grogu and some other things, but it wasn't that right out of the gate. Game of Thrones, Walking Dead, those shows were like that out of the gate.
I don't know. Yeah, because I remember watching that first episode, and that's just what everyone was talking about. And yes, Grogu at the end was great, but at the same time, a lot of people were just talking about diving into that timeline, and of being like the first live action real like Star Wars show. So I think there was a lot of hype surrounded by it, and I think I don't think it was on the same level as Game of Thrones. I think the excitement was there, though, like of the excitement.
But like Game of Thrones, right, or House of the Dragon is like 29 million views like the week, right? Isn't it for the week? That's insane. Yeah. What is Obi-Wan doing? 5 million?
I don't think we got those numbers per week. I think we got repeat numbers, but yeah, it probably didn't see those type of numbers. And then you have to subscribe to HBO Max. What is it, like $15, $20 a month?
Yeah, or if you have Plus HBO on your cable subscription. If you get HBO on your cable subscription, you get Max as part of that. But
HBO Max is still free for a lot of AT&T customers. So there are a lot of people who are paying for it, and then there's just a lot of folks like me who you get it with your internet service.
Right.
Well, I mean, look at the meme that was out just a couple when the first episode came out, where they showed that building in New York, where every apartment was watching House of Dragon because you
Yes.
could just they were all flashing exactly the same on their TV for like that whole
It's crazy.
hour. It's insane, and it tells you how big Game of Thrones got, and I think with Star Wars, especially because of what happened with the sequel trilogy and just how the fan base got a little split. I think it took people time to get on Mandalorian. I think Mandalorian is about the closest thing Star Wars has to appointment television right now. And I'll be curious though, because I just think that Andor could turn into that. But it's going to have to turn into that, because I think you can bring in some people who maybe aren't big Star Wars fans, because Andor is going to be something different, and they can come in and not have to deal with a whole lot of knowledge of certain aspects. So
Andor's going to be able to do that, honestly, because it's having a hard enough time, I think, building hype even within the Star Wars fans. Star Wars fans just don't seem excited about this show. And I don't know why. To me, I think it's going to be good. But it's going to be really challenging to get like a Game of Thrones with Star Wars, like that kind of hype, that kind of show. Maybe it's because, Star Wars tends to be more like towards teenagers or something like that. Whereas, Game of Thrones is like crazy,
everybody,
violence and sex and everything else. So I don't know, but it would be nice if they could get a show that is getting more than just Star Wars fans excited for it.
Yeah.
But I also think that's where Star Wars is right now. Is I feel like, in a way, because of how certain things have gone, they haven't set a new generational fan base for Star Wars as much as they would have liked to have. And I don't know if it's because you have Marvel sitting there, which has taken a lot of that, what would be that fan base, if it's because of just reaction to what the stuff has been put out so far, or if it's just something I truly believe in, is that we have so much different IPs out there right now that it's really hard for any one thing to establish a foothold. Game of Thrones is the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. There's so many options out there now. That's true.
Andor might be Disney's sort of answer to Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, all these major dramas that had an older target audience and did incredible numbers and just have cemented themselves within history, as being these top drama shows. I think Andor might be sort of the response to that, trying to broaden their horizons a little bit. It's being listed as a spy espionage series in a Star Wars project, which we're under 2 hours now. If anybody's keeping time, I'm refreshing my Disney Plus browser to see if they release it early, like they did with.
Sometimes they do that.
Boba Fett, yeah.
Yep.
They haven't yet, but it's we've come a long way. They announced Diego Luna returning back in November of 2018. I can't believe it's been almost 4 years since that announcement.
Has it been that long?
It's been that long.
Oh my gosh!
They really do.
It's really exciting. Yeah.
So I do have to go, but before I go, I wanted to plug this real quick. If you love pizza and you love Star Wars, tomorrow we're doing trivia over at Playa Pizza, and there are going to be Star Wars themed drinks there as well. You have the Qui-Gon Jinn, you have the Baby Yoda, you have the Jabba the Hutt, and then you have blue milk.
What's in the blue milk?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the bartender for that, so I don't know. But there will be 30. Someone is at. I've actually got the bartender over here. They're asking what the ingredients are for the.
You have a bartender in your house?
Yeah.
Why do you think?
Spice, coconut rum. Spice, coconut rum.
Spice?
Pineapple juice.
cream of coconut.
Cream of coconut.
Simple syrup.
Simple syrup. I'm not a bartender, so I don't know what this means.
Banana rum cream.
Banana rum cream.
Lime juice.
And lime juice. Okay. All right. Well,
Nice.
There you go. Cool. And the there will be 3 rounds, 30 questions. First round, New Hope. Second round, Empire Strikes Back, and the third round, Return of the Jedi. And then there will be bonus rounds for if there's ties. And the first prize is a $50 gift card, and then the second prize is a mystery Star Wars collectible. So if you're in the Orlando area, Playa Pizza is located behind the Magic Kingdom cast parking lot. It's just right next to the area. It starts at 7:30 and goes to 8:30. So hope to see you guys there.
Nice. And yeah, you can meet Colin, Brooke, and Matt there. They'll all be there from the Star Wars Stuff podcast.
Signing autographs.
Yes, that is what we'll be doing. But with that being said, Kyle, Kevin, Ted, Craig, sure to talk to you sometime. It was great meeting you all. May the force be with you.
I'm coming to Playa Pizza.
You better, or I'll be mad at you. All right, bye guys.
Take care, Colin.
See ya.
Bye, Colin.
He's gonna be mad. I'm actually in New York right now, so
I was about to ask you, where are you podcasting from?
I'm in New York right now. I'm at my
Wow.
house.
Wow.
So yeah, one of my friends is getting married this weekend, so I got to go to Manhattan this weekend.
All right. So yeah, that's pretty much all I had. If anyone else has anything to talk about, Star Wars related.
Well,
I think we'll have a little more to talk about tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, later today, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. now
in about 3 hours.
Kevin, you're looking up there. I feel like this is the intro to the Brady Bunch.
Kevin's the one with curls. Just remember that.
Marsha.
So let me ask you this first, though: is everyone going to watch all 3 episodes all in a row, or are you going to do something weird and just watch 1, 2, and wait?
No, it'll be later today once I've had some sleep, and then I will watch all 3 episodes in a row.
Yeah.
I won't actually remember what I watched.
I wish they gave us the option to watch it all uninterrupted without 10 minutes of credits at the end of each one, you know?
Yeah. Legalities.
The plan is watch 1, get at least 5 or 6 hours of sleep, and then somehow squeeze the other 2 into my workday. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think my plan is maybe to try and take a nap, a less than 2-hour nap, wake up, try and watch it, and probably be dead tired at work tomorrow. So,
I mean today? Oh, well.
Yeah, today, tomorrow. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe it's 0 sleep. I don't know.
Yeah.
We shall see. But I just want to thank everyone for showing up. Kyle, Ted, Craig, Kevin.
Thanks for having me.
Much. Yeah.
Always good to be here.
Thanks a lot.
Good to
Yeah,
see you.
and special thanks to our guest that we had at the top of the podcast, Chris Bartlett.
Yeah,
It was
Chris.
wonderful that he came on. And all I got to say is, may the force be with you.
And also with you.
That'll work.
Isn't this a rebellion? Let's rebel. Come on now.